𝗲𝐸's Trifecta launch of Genesis Part 1, along with the Dragontopia and Tides of Fortune DLCs are now live after many delays, and based on what we're seeing, along with the immense player backlash, they should have received a further delay. 𝗲𝐸's content drops are typically not in the best shape. That's a given with Studio Wildcard, but with Genesis Part 1 and these 2 paid DLCs, this is quite possibly the worst release we've seen in 𝗲𝐸's history. We've seen posts like this tweet showing the common flashing issues players are seeing with the release of the new content, but also highlighting a massive issue with the pricing of the DLC, saying, asking more than the base price of the original game for DLC combined when you put out this quality should be illegal for the 20th time now. And this really brings the pattern to light for not only Studio Wildcard, but for many franchises currently on the market. Deliver the base product, half-baked, and then release as many small bolt-on microtransactions as possible, with 𝗲𝐸 being no exception. Just to refresh your memory, 𝗲𝐸 Ascended at launch, which included all the remastered maps, was something like $45 on Steam way back in October 2023, and by comparison, Dragontopia is currently selling for $29.99 USD, while Tides of Fortune is priced at $19.99. So for $5 more, you get the entirety of 𝗲𝐸 Survival Ascended, with both of these add-ons launching incomplete and currently getting bombed to death in the Steam reviews. We've seen things like a hex dupe issue pop up at launch, causing the official network to be taken offline now twice, massive server queues, not enough servers, exceedingly high ping on servers, often reaching 4 digits, and it's been bad. That's really all you can say about it. It was bad. And all while Snail Games, 𝗲𝐸's publisher, goes for broke with a move to get their stock prices back into compliance. Yeah, there's a lot here, so let's get started. Wildcard has delayed the launch of the Ascended version of Genesis Part 1 4 times. You see, originally it was slated to go live in February 2025, which I think at the time many of us thought was a pipe dream, but was delayed 14 months from there up until April 2026. And from there, it was pushed back to June 2026, another delay after that to early July for console certification, and then one final delay lasting a day for platform approval. But launch it did on July the 3rd. Of the 3 pieces to last week's launch, Gen Part 1 was the only portion that was included with the original base purchase price of 𝗲𝐸 Ascended. And of the content that went live together, Gen Part 1 also has the worst review score, at least on Steam, currently sitting at a rating of mostly negative, with only 20% of reviews giving it a positive rating. Not quite the 14% rating 𝗏𝐻𝐻𝐿 still maintains, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much better. The reviews really tell us all we need to know about how the community is reacting to the current state of Gen Part 1, with this one saying, "This is a joke, right? Wildcard is just having a laugh with this dumpster fire of a release at this point. Do not bother with this mess." Another one says, "Can't say it's unexpected, but they put 0 effort into any part of this DLC, but disappointing still." While this other and third one here dove into the issues a bit further, harkening back to one of Snail Games' previously failed titles, Atlas. It says, "Wow, you really outdid yourselves. 𝗲𝐸 Genesis released, took the ships from Atlas, one of the worst game releases ever, and then you stood there saying, 'We learned from it.' And somehow, against all odds, you actually managed to make it worse. You dropped the worst water map imaginable with a world border acting like an ocean floor and delivered a release so bad it makes Atlas look polished. I honestly didn't even know that was possible. You took one of the lowest points in survival game history, said you learned from it, then came back and surpassed yourselves with what might be the worst release in 𝗲𝐸 history. Impressive, honestly. I hope you're proud of your work." To achieve a 20% user review rating on the supposed enhanced and evergreen version of a map that was released 6-ish years ago is truly mind-blowing. You see, outside of the map itself, which we'll come back to, on July the 4th, just a day after its launch, the official network was taken offline due to a critical exploit being discovered with a rollback set in there as well. Now, this led to general anarchy as the official 𝗲𝐸 Discord went into full rebellion mode. because built into this first round of mayhem was the point that for many players, they had lost access to their characters. Yesterday, so this is now July the 5th, we saw more announcements hit the official Arc Discord that a hexagon exploit had slipped through the cracks from their initial exploit fixing patch, so Wildcard was again taking the official network offline. During this time, players were also putting the studio on blast for not allocating enough space for official servers, with some fans saying that they tried to log in for 15 plus hours and could still not get access to the new Genesis map. Ping rates were also a serious point of contention, with far too many servers showing pings of 1100. Once players were able to finally get into an official server, they many times arrived far too late with all the best spots already taken, and with the official network issues, rollbacks, and so on, the Genesis rollout itself has been anything but smooth. We've also seen more than just player complaints about the rollbacks and server issues. Genesis itself is not landing in a strong place with players, including what is described as a lazy implementation of the out-of-bounds system, but the real focus has been the execution of the ocean biomes, with one reviewer calling it an embarrassment to the Ark franchise. Using the volumetric fog command, which I still have to do on my PC setup, despite having a monster CPU and 4090 graphics card, anyways, it will reveal the unfinished ocean floor, which again, for a map that was supposedly remastered from the original, this looks awful, thrown together and half-baked. We've also seen player sentiment towards the Dragontopia DLC land in a pretty rough spot, currently showing just 41% of reviews labeling it as positive. And keep in mind, of the 3 pieces that launched into Arc last week, Dragontopia is currently sitting with the highest rating of the 3. Issues with this $30 DLC came down to basically 3 main points: the price, the character modeling, and just how damn incomplete it is. 𝗟𝐴SA is dabbling with paid DLC while still in early access with its base game version is something we've spoken about many times, but again, this tends to be par for the course with many titles releasing. Deliver the game in small pieces while throwing in as many paid experiences as possible. I mean, it is what it is, right? But that doesn't mean we have to like it. To be fair, there are more than a few general complaints about Arc and the Genesis issues rolled into these reviews for Dragontopia, but I've seen everything from Temu, How to Train Your Dragon, to others pointing towards the incomplete release of this DLC and how much you were paying versus how little you are getting, at least for now. Twitter was ablaze with the topic of the Dragontopia artwork, with many calling it AI generated, a claim, by the way, I cannot confirm or deny, although it tends to lean towards the style of Wildcard artist 𝗏𝗏𝗄, so in that regard, it seems to be legit. However, the similarities between Dragontopia and How to Train Your Dragon are indeed undeniable. Arc players were wanting something more akin to Smaug from Lord of the Rings, and instead they got a tamed down, cartoony version of a dragon. There's also the topic of how little you get with the Dragontopia DLC itself, consisting of, right now, the one Umbra dragon, a saddle, a grappling hook, and a skill tree. Now, as with previous Arc packs, these are pay full price now, while the entire package is delivered slowly over time types of things. But the Umbra is only male, and players are going to have to wait until July when the female Lumina arrives before they can actually engage with the breeding mechanics, while further releases for this DLC are planned into October and December of this year, but we don't know if those will be delayed. Furthermore, players are speaking out about concerns over the power capabilities of the Umbra, with its plasma blast capable of disabling tech, and the fact that it has a lock-on ability making it nigh impossible to dodge if engaged in PvP. There's also the curious choice to not make the Umbra available on the most recent map release of Genesis, but yeah, all in all, for $30, players rightfully expected more, especially when at that price point, it is nearly 2/3 the cost of the entire Arc Ascended purchase price. On a quick side note, while preparing this video, it looks like the third piece to last week's release, Tides of Fortune, has also seen its Steam rating fall to now just 20%. Now, since this add-on builds on the Gen Part 1 release, you do see some cross-population in terms of the reviews and the player pushback, but many say that they just want a refund. Others commented on the lack of a finished product or how Wildcard has done more harm with this version of Genesis, such as this one saying they ruined the Gen 1 ocean. Other reviews state issues with the ships not releasing from the shipyards, and much like the other content, it is not yet finished, despite the $20 price tag, with galleons not yet showing up as part of this DLC. So, all in all, one of, if not the worst releases we've seen in ARC's history. And as of the time of this recording on July the 6th, despite everything players are experiencing, there's been no follow-up announcements from the team at Studio Wildcard, and I mean nothing. However, ARC's publisher, Snail Games, may be somewhat wrapped up in the mix here with this botched release. You see, in response to an impending deadline to get their stock into a state of a minimum bid price of at least $1, Snail announced a 1-for-5 stock split, essentially taking 5 shares and compiling it down into 1 share while also raising the price of the share to bring them back into NASDAQ compliance. The split became effective on July the 2nd, with trading on the split adjusted shares beginning today. Now, some have speculated that the timing of this Genesis DLC and the rest of what we saw released last week and this split that Snail announced are related in order to drive up investor confidence, to which, I cannot confirm. But again, all that aside, last week's release is causing major issues for fans of the ARC franchise, which oddly, I don't really see anyone covering across the various social channels. Anyways, feel free to drop any thoughts or feedback you have in the comments section below. Have you tried the new Gen map, Dragontopia or Tides of Fortune? And I'd also like to know how it's playing for you on your platform. If you found the video informative, please consider hitting subscribe and ringing the notifications bell. And before I end this one, I'd like to extend a massive and heartfelt thank you to all of our hardcore channel supporters. Until the next one, this is 𝐓𝐴𝐿𝐵uzzLitebeer, signing off.